Hey guys, it's been a while since I actually did a podcast, but it's been quite a month of Sundays actually, and I have a special guest. It's been longer than that for having a guest on my show as well. Uncle Don, as prior we had spoke about his career in the military and intelligence, his travels across the world, and we have a special event today. So, hello Don, how you doing?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you.
Well, it's good to have you back, especially on the Thanksgiving weekend that we had, man. It was an interesting time, wasn't it? But anyway, I got a set of 3 questions focused on defense statecraft that I conjured up, and I was like, I wonder what your opinion is on all these. So I figured, well, why not throw you under the gauntlet and ask the question straight?
Okay, we can try.
Alrighty then. We're going to try to time this, but if you have a good answer, I'm not going to be one to subjugate that one. So, with that being said, the very first question that I have for you. The United States has decided to destroy ISIS primarily through air power and the use of proxies. What are the advantages and drawbacks of this kind of strategic approach?
Well, the big advantage is that we do not have direct involvement with that approach. In other words, the air power is separated from the events happening on the ground. The chances of Americans becoming casualties or dying in that conflict are significantly reduced. The big drawback is that we don't have anybody on the ground from the United States. We do have a few special forces, I think, helping the Iraqis right now. But really, in order to defeat ISIS, you're going to need boots on the ground. Now, can we do this with a proxy? Possibly, but most likely it's not going to be overly successful. The reason I say that is the proxy would be from other countries in the region, and most of those countries are not really overly enthusiastic about getting involved in a war with ISIS.
Right.
About the only one that might come through is Iraq, because we've been helping to rebuild their military. But I don't know if the Iraqi forces that have been restructured can carry it out. ISIS is pretty fluid. It's hard to pin them down, and they do not play by the rules of war.
Right.
And because of that, it's going to take more of a concerted effort by everybody. And I say we don't really have a lot of cooperation among the countries in the region. A lot of them don't trust us. A lot of them there's a lot of sympathy for ISIS in the region, even though we don't want to admit it.
Right.
And you have a lot of division among our so-called allies. The Kurds are our biggest ally in that whole area.
Right.
And the Kurds, are not necessarily, they're not Arabs, and they are not necessarily looked upon with favorable eyes by countries like Turkey, by countries like Iraq and Iran. The Kurds would like to have their own independent country, and the Kurdistan area kind of flops into all 3 of those, Turkey, Iran, and Iraq. So, it's the big plus is that we don't have direct involvement, so therefore the casualty numbers would be considerably low. The big drawback is without having direct involvement, we're kind of, I think, blowing in the wind there. It's just, it's going to be a long and involved conflict. It's not going to end real soon, and I think a lot of people are concerned about what the new administration is going to do. We did hear during the election that Mr. Trump is going to get rid of ISIS, but he never told us how.
Right.
And I don't think it can be done unless we have troops on the ground, and that's not the current strategy.
Right. Yeah. Currently, it is not, is it? No. Oh, so you were talking about in that point. I just wanted to focus on it. You were talking about Iraq would be one of the more focus point of proxies that would actually engage in ISIS and be one of the main drivers as our primary force on the ground. Correct?
Correct.
So, what about Turkey's stance? Because, as you mentioned it earlier, they do have an issue with the Kurds, but don't they have just as much of an issue with the ISIS as a problem in the region for their own geopolitical situation?
Well, it is a concern for Turkey, obviously, because of their location.
Right.
But so far, ISIS has not created havoc in Turkey. They've done a few things, but not like expanding into Turkish territory for their caliphate. So the Turks are just kind of watching,
Right.
and haven't been overly involved in defeating ISIS.
Right.
When they got real close to their border last year, yes, they took action, but as I say, they don't trust the U.S. support of the Kurds. They're not real happy with our support there, and so they're not overly. I'm not overly confident that the Turks would be a good supporter in fighting ISIS.
Right. All right. And I am going to relate another question back to Iraq. Do you think their military capacity, even with us bolstering their forces and also training their own military forces as it is, do you think they would have the actual, not just the enthusiasm, but the capacity to maintain a front and actually be able to drive or effectively defeat ISIS in Iraq?
Theoretically, yes. The big issue in Iraq is the conflict between the Sunnis and the Shiites. Mm-hmm. And because of that, you don't really have a lot of cooperation between those two segments of the Iraqi population.
Right.
They don't trust each other. And if you're trying to build a military that's going to go after ISIS, how do you do that with people coming from both the Shiite side of the house and the Sunni side of the house? Because things were working prior to Malik. I guess it was Malik.
Yeah.
Things were working fairly well, and he kind of destroyed things and lost a lot of trust within the population of Iraq. So it's I think that's one thing that will have to be addressed, and whether we're successful at building bridges between the two elements of the Islamic religion. That remains to be seen. That division goes back all the way to the 7th century. So
with Muhammad and the whole schism.
Right.
Yeah, got you there. What about this is still relating on the same topic because we still got a few more minutes on what I've timed. With that being said, Iraq would be the main focal point. What about Syria? How do you feel that they would be able to do anything? Would they be able to do anything with the Assad regime? Would they be able to do anything effective in stopping ISIS, as a proxy, as one of our primary forces? Are they not really a consideration, or are they kind of?
Well, that is a bucket of worms
right.
in Syria. Obviously, we're not supporting the Assad regime. We would like to see it disappear. The problem, if that occurred, is that creates another vacuum
right.
in the region, and probably another opportunity for ISIS to even expand further in Syria.
Right.
Then you have, the Kurds are also fighting the Assad regime. It's just a mess right now. And I'm not sure what the U.S. policy should be. I think deep down, we should just pull out
of Syria
and see what happens. If we stop supporting the Kurds or stop supporting the anti-ISIS group, it might collapse as a result of us not supporting them. But I don't see a win-win for anybody right now, the way things are going, and that's kind of sad. Russia, of course, complicated things when they decided, they're going to support Assad, and even though they say, they're fighting ISIS as well, a lot of their offensives tend to target the Kurds as well.
our allies, the ones we're
Yeah,
backing majority
right.
of the time.
So, as I say, it's a big mess.
Right.
I'm glad I'm not a diplomat to try to figure it out.
Right, yeah, because that sounds like it would be a real problem in the situation that's just there. Hey guys, thanks for checking out my first podcast. There's 2 more coming after this one, so be sure to check it out. Also, be sure to like it, subscribe to us if you haven't already, share it, tell all your friends about it, and leave us a comment below if you haven't done that as well. So, hope you guys enjoy, and keep watching.